another episode of CONLIFE, a Murdoch Worldwide Entertainment production on the Chronicles of Comic-Con YouTube channel. So if you're listening to the audio podcast, jump over to YouTube and give us a watch. We are brought to you by our sponsors over at Dark Nyte Studios. If you need shirts for your branding for Comic-Cons in the future, or logos, or any kind of graphic designs, hit up darknightstudios.com. Follow him on his Instagram and his Twitter. Trust me, you're going to love working with Batt. He is my go-to for any kind of graphic designs, logos, or shirts I need. Thank you very much for sponsoring the CONLIFE podcast, Dark Nyte Studios. This is our Halloween Before Christmas special. We have Storm King Comics. Let's bring in Sandy King Carpenter and her wonderful guests.
I don't know. You know, so much of what I do is working remotely with all these guys. And the books keep having to come out, even if Diamond doesn't pay me and then doesn't distribute the books and does weird shit with the comic stores, you know, for that part of my life. And then all the stuff with the TV series are, production has stopped waiting. And so it's like being backed up on the runway at JFK. Mm-hmm. You know, so you just kind of go, okay, so we get all the scripts ready for the whole season instead of, just the first couple of episodes. So a lot of my life goes on as usual, except I don't get to see those two shining faces in person. And I know I hate that.
Miss you a lot. That part sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. I don't get to hug anybody, and that sucks. But my work day is largely the same. I kind of and I consciously keep the same schedule. I've got my guys working remotely, so the office is a little, dicey, and the warehouse runs are different. But really, and John loves isolation.
Yeah,
it's quarantine is.
So do I.
He's arrived.
So do I.
Oh, I see. Now we can start. There he is.
This is what we call our little plague writer's paradise.
Yeah.
With all the research behind you.
Yes. Hi, Kat. Hi, Amanda.
Hello. How are you?
Hello, Mom.
Listen, you old fart. I'm not your mother.
Hey, Sandy is the queen and the goddess that makes all things possible.
True that.
Okay, the suck-up's over. Yay.
No, I don't know where I'd be without her looking out for me.
I have reserved a portion of the podcast for kissing ass. So
yes.
Oh,
good.
We're all great at it.
I'm on my knees right now, actually.
Wow.
With no pants on.
Uh-oh.
Well,
Don't make me prove it.
I would tell you I'm not wearing pants, but mine are actually covered in my logo. So yeah.
Hey Neil, how you doing?
I'm surviving, man.
We're gonna cheer Neil up at some point here. I just know it.
No, it's cool. I'm happy. I'm good.
Of course, Neil's also an actor, so.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly. So I have to be a little mopey sometimes, emotional.
So Sandy, I finally finished my bookshelves.
I know. I was
Right.
looking. I gotta say, man, you totally. The deal is you're looking sharp.
That's not bad. These are all books I either wrote or appear in.
I was going to ask.
Yes.
No.
Wow.
Whoa.
So I wouldn't claim this big a body of work. I mean, a lot of these are anthologies that are that thick, and I account for that much of it. But it's
That's kind of
So,
cool.
yeah.
That's really cool.
including some Storm King product back there, which is it's got
None
its
of this
own
is
shelf
mine.
at this point.
Oh yeah, good job.
I had
dude.
nothing to do with any of this.
Yeah,
So yeah, good on you.
that was
Yeah.
there when you got the place, right?
It came with the place. That was why I rented it, quite frankly.
But Janice may be having trouble with internet because she's not answering a message, and that's not like her either.
Well, we can always just start whenever, and whenever she gets here, and if she doesn't, she doesn't. It's all good.
Yeah, but that's a real loss. She's just a real interesting person.
She is. Her stories are wild, amazing.
And
yeah,
super prompt.
Yeah, and she is. So like that's I was a little worried about her.
Yeah, I'm good either way, and I was happy that you were bringing a letterer onto the show because that's something I think the general public doesn't get to hear about very much. You know what I'm saying?
And her experience is so great because she's done everything from Archie to Wolverine to manga, and then of course is our entire lettering department. So she does this wide range of stuff for us.
Yeah, your guys' lettering is all over the place in its own. Yeah,
and she's really like another editor for us. Her being the third eye on everything, where she'll sit there and go, "Do you really think this works here?" And because we're really such a tight team where we're all on all of it and communicate.
Right.
But she's got such a great eye and she's got such great judgment that you'll sit there kind of going, huh.
Well, like you said, she's worked on so many varieties of projects, and the letterer is one of the last people to see it too, right?
Yeah, and then we really get into everybody at each stage on each of the comics, whether it's the anthology or the ongoing series or the sci-fi or any of it, weighs in at every stage, and they all. I don't know how other companies work entirely, but I think that it's a little more isolated process where they're handing off.
Right.
And in ours, we all
That's
keep
my understanding. Yeah.
Because I think it's essential. Hey, there's Dwayne.
Hey, Dwayne.
I think you're muted.
Muted, babe.
There we go. Better? All right, good.
Yes.
Yeah.
He muted again.
Hey, guys. Thanks, David.
Muted again.
No,
I was about to add to what Sandy said about Janice, which is that lettering is very limited in comics traditionally. You have caption banners, you have word balloons, and one thing that I learned and have done working with Janice for Storm King is that we will sit there and try to find new ways to express characters saying this stuff. And she goes, how about if the balloon was all broken up like a bad radio transmission? Or how about if it had little spikes on it to indicate that it's an electronic voice or something like that? And personally, I've never seen that so far. It was an innovation as far as I was concerned. And Janice came up with all that stuff.
She solved a thing on Asylum where I had King Leo at the homeless encampment drawing a saying in the sand, and she lettered the saying in the sand, and it looked like it was drawn in the sand. Wow. It was astounding.
Wow.
Yeah,
special skill.
She did a smash through glass that looked 3D. Wow. Coming out. Just stuff we needed to. How do you punch this? How do you get the emphasis where you want it? Because it's, for me, coming from screenwriting into comics.
It's a different set of visual mediums.
Yeah, and where do you get your punches? Where do you get your, it was a big learning curve to get your cliffhangers, to get your emphasis, to do those things, and to try and make the visual sound effect become real to the reader.
Right.
And she's just great at that. I mean, it's one thing to get the words across and the dialogue across, and it's another thing. I hate having to figure out sound effects.
Oh God.
On
You
a
know,
on a visual.
With Scow, it's always about the gun sound effects. With me, it's always about the smash and crash. And
Well,
you know, everybody has.
what gunfire sound effect hasn't been done in comic books, you know? Especially if you've seen old, you know, war comics or anything with a machine gun in it. It's so
In fact,
confining.
David, weren't you a sound effect? I recall you were a sound effect in a comic book. You have art on your wall.
I was in fact, and I don't know who to blame for this, but I was in fact a sound effect in an X-Men comic book.
I need more explanation.
I love this.
But the sound effect was based on a mispronunciation of my last name. So there's a positive and negative. You could say I began in comics as a sound effect.
Okay, wait. Okay, so how do I pronounce your last name?
Scow.
Okay, so
Casey, a hard CH like in school.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was a sh or a k. So okay, Scow.
Well,
okay.
my screen name is not helping any because that's my screen name encourages the mispronunciation.
Gotcha. But
yeah.
Enough about me.
It does sound like a kind of a wet gunshot.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it was used for. It was used for a space gun that was shooting at a flying reptile.
Nice.
Which kind of sums up my entire existence.
Yeah. And no one's ever used Brzezinski as a sound effect. I don't know why. My last name is ignored.
Trips off the tongue so lightly.
It really does, right?
But the
I refuse to try.
The abbreviation is Squarzy.
Thanks, Casey.
Squarzy is a great sound for like screwing something wet into something.
Wow.
Wow.
And now that you've suggested that,
this is for adults only.
Exactly.
Okay. We now have to have a contest at Storm King for who can make Swarzynski into a sound effect in the comic.
I will.
All right.
All
Screwing something wet.
All right.
That just sounds.
I'm fairly convinced that Amanda can figure out how to use Swarzynski as a sound effect.
Oh, I can't wait to see how she does.
I was definitely thinking about it, and I'm like, if we did it in like 3B.
Swarzynski.
Exactly. See next panel, you know.
It sounds like a warning from the lizard that David's gunshot.
Yes, exactly.
Dwayne is Dwayne is in fact a character in my next Halloween Night story.
Wow.
His name is Undertaker Dwayne.
Nice.
That's my porn name.
Is that a combination since the Undertaker just retired?
No.
The Undertaker, we were trying to have, who were we going to have? We were having somebody kill the Undertaker, even though he was undead. We had a whole plan for that, and then I just gave it up, and we went with Bastet and moved on.
Nice.
Too complicated.
Yeah, and
exactly.
And Jaime Carrillo and his sister do such a great job with the stories that Bastet weaves in between. That
nice.
You know, we're just sticking with Bastet because it's another
That's
story
good.
that then runs between and still introduces each story. So.
Dwayne is a rare
you were
character
right about
for a Halloween
punctuation.
Night story. For a Halloween Night story, Dwayne is a rare character because he actually survives.
Yes.
Oh wow!
There's
Hey, Janice.
Hey, Janice.
Where?
You're muted.
She's here. You're muted. Muted. We can't hear you.
Use your lettering.
That'd be great if she just did it. There she is! Yay!
It would be great if Janice just spoken word balloons. You know when she's.
That'd be great.
Oh,
I can add that in editing.
Thought balloons always follow me. You don't want to know what's in it.
oh no!
Never ask a letterer what they're actually thinking, huh? Okay.
David, so like,
She'll tell you.
I thought balloons following me.
Boy, Janice, you were a hot topic right before you showed up.
What was
It's
it?
true.
You were saying how great you were.
You were talking about how
Yeah.
wonderful you were.
Oh, that other person.
But that's over with now.
They were saying how punctual you are, and then they stopped talking because they knew you were going to show up.
I was coming off the deadline. Then I had to like get my husband out the door. And then I was like, and then it said, okay, 1 o'clock. I can get on by 1.
What, did you lock him out?
No, he had to have it go to an appointment and then
Oh, okay.
go to the gym after. So it's like, yeah, I got to pack lunch, right, Sandy?
I don't know how you ladies do it. I can't get
look
me
great.
out the door.
Am I the last one to show up, or somebody?
I think this is it for today.
Yeah.
I think so.
Our other 2 people are missing, and they won't be here. So this is
right.
This is a wonderful group. I'm very happy. Yeah. So, and I would say let's start, but we've already had too much good material as far as I'm concerned. We've started. So
good.
So,
who are we covering for?
we're missing Steve Scott and
Dennis Calero.
and
Okay.
Dennis.
Oh, Steve
okay.
had written in the group email that he was on deadline for a cover for a Spanish magazine, so he can't make it.
Yeah, and Dennis's
Yeah, good
little
excuse.
girl had to go to the doctor. So
Oh,
An actual excuse.
yeah, a real excuse. And
hey, he's doing his job. Come on.
I know.
Yeah. Yep.
Deadline? That's not an excuse.
Yeah, he just didn't want to be here because he knows I was going to harass him about the podcast we were going to start together 10 years ago.
Ah.
I'm just extremely jealous. It's his speaking voice. I'm extremely jealous of his speaking voice. It's like butter.
Ah.
Yeah. Always have.
Nice.
So let's go around the table here. Let's start with Kat and Amanda. What's it like to work for Storm King Comics? And remember, your boss is listening.
Oh my God.
Believe me, that's not going to stop.
I know, right? It's the best behind your back or to your face. It's still the best.
No, it's great because Sandy, there's a lot of trust and a lot of freedom. You know, she expects you to not fuck it up and to do a good job, and then you do, and then things are good.
Yeah. It's pretty great.
Accountability with free range. So, but that's
basically, yeah.
Which is not something known in the comic book industry, really.
Yeah, and you know, the feedback that she has and notes that she has are always spot on and make something better. So it's truly a delight in all ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, why hire somebody if you don't trust them?
I hate micromanagers. Yes, you're so correct.
Yeah.
You hired people for their expertise, trust in their expertise. Neo, what's it like working for Storm King, and what are you excited to bring forth in Storm Kids, the new series that's going to be coming out?
I've worked for a bunch of different publishers, and this has just been such a unique experience because Sandy is, it's like I feel like she's only going to work on things that she's genuinely excited about and really cares about. Mm-hmm. So it's not like there's just projects that are like, oh, we're just doing that and stuff. Because I've done books where the publisher doesn't even seem to care. It's just a license thing and whatever, just get it out the door. And this is such a collaborative experience. Like even like Janice, you know, she's our letterer, and she sent me, you know, suggestions, you know, while she's lettering, or like, you think it'd be better this way? And it's like, yes, you're right, of course. So, because she's brilliant. But I've never got a note or a suggestion from a letterer, you know. It's like, that's usually by the time it's to the letterer, I don't even exist in the process anymore.
Right.
Know? So to get something like that is like, the first time I got an email from her, I was like, huh, this is really interesting. And and then, you know, Sandy is sometimes called me and been like, so this thing you're working on, you know, like maybe you're going in the wrong direction. And it's like, you know, and she's always right. So it's been great. And we're working on right now my first thing. Here it is. This is the first issue of the Grimmstown Terror Tales.
Nice.
Which is coming out, the full graphic novel, in February. So February 23rd, I think. super excited about it. It's a project it's been around in my head forever. And Sandy and I were talking about it at a convention. Basically, Sandy, I think we were at Long Beach Comic Con last year, and she's like, Neo, I'm going to get you to start writing stuff for Storm King. And I'm like, okay, yeah.
Oh, Mr. Bones.
And then it's like, what are we going to do? And then we talked about this, and then she's like, okay, cool, go do that. I was like, okay. I'm like, do you need me to send you more stuff? She's like, no, it sounds great. Just go do that. And it's like, okay. It's like, how do you want to do it? You want to do it in 5 issues, 10? Like, what do you want to do? And I'm just like, this is weird. Like,
This is, I'm not used to this in this industry. Yeah.
I'm usually not used to somebody going, yeah, that sounds awesome. Just go make that happen. And
However long.
it'll be
Holding a winning lotto ticket. It's like, how did it happen?
yeah, it's totally confusing. And I'm like, do I need to send you outlines or stuff? And she's like, no, just send me like a few sentences what you're gonna do. Like, okay. Like, so it's sort of almost,
that's adorable.
It was like liberating at first, but then also a little like stressful, because I'm just like, wait a minute, there's literally no oversight here. Like, and so, you know, I wrote the first script, sent it to her, and she was like, this is great. And there's Grub.
Here's Grub. It's our first toy.
Hey, Grub.
So that's
awesome.
your first toy based on the comic books that Neo is currently writing.
Yeah. This is Grub the Booger Troll.
Yeah, Sandy doesn't mess around. Like after I think we finished like the first script and it was drawn, and she's like, we should make a plush of that thing. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then she's often making it happen. And I was like, oh, usually
There should be
people
a
talk
snot
about the thing.
dispenser, right, Sandy?
Snot dispenser. There should be. Yeah,
He's
and every character
right all the time. And when he talks, he
But
This
you know,
is a project
really,
I pitched to her like a year ago, and she's already made a plush. And you know,
Wow.
yeah,
Incredible.
he's apparently somewhere on the docks right now. He's due to come after the first of the year. But
I want one. That's awesome.
aren't they great? And they're really snuggly, and he kind of holds your hand if you hug him.
But yeah, and I get exactly where you're coming from, Neo, too, because you know, in the con industry, so many people they talk a big game. So
Sure.
few people back it up and are like, let's do this. I'm full on behind it. Let's go.
right? Yeah, we literally I pitched that project to her like a year ago, and there's the first book's coming out, and she's made a plush, and we're working on the second book. And I mean, Sandy doesn't mess around. It's just like it's like a locomotive speeding off the tracks, you know, just get out of the way, you know. So
he's a Concorde. But, Renee DeLiz's art is amazing too.
Yeah, Renee DeLiz, God, she brought so much to it.
Yeah, I read the art directions. I look at the art. I go back and forth. It's like, how should they speak? And the funny thing was like, I chose this font for Grub that was like watery. I just sensed it. And then I saw him fighting like on page 12. He was like spitting all over the place. So I said, okay, I'm on the right road for this. I think it's when he spits out the key to the closet. Also, he hacks it out, right? So, okay, I'm on a roll. So that's usually
he's a booger troll because everything comes out of his nose.
and wet sounding. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And Janice, they were talking about this before you got here, how much you influence the overall themes of these comics as a letterer. Is that something you're used to in past projects, or is that just the collaborativeness here?
Because when I started with hand lettering, nothing moved. You had to put it in place unless it was a total, rewrite, which we didn't do often. So you really get to observe the art. It takes like an hour. You're looking at everything and how it's connected, and you're reading the script. So yeah, every time, as Neo said, first he found it liberating to have the freedom, but then you're scared because you have to deliver, right? So every series, Dwayne, David, Amanda, Neo, I'm scared out of my pants. It's like, I don't want to do the same I did before. So it's like, sometimes I have to walk away, get up the nerve to sit down and focus on it. So yeah, I try to make every single series have a distinct sound to it in terms of the font choices and such.
Now,
so I'm still scared. Go ahead.
Yeah, with picking out your lettering and the font choices and the way you're the way you're hearing it, what kind of inspiration do you draw from visually, like in other art forms, like TV, movies, or even just
Well,
visual art?
my background is fine arts, so it's like bottom up blank piece of paper.
Okay.
And before I went to kindergarten, my dad taught me Chinese calligraphy. So I find that I always try to get an organic feel to my work to make it integral to what I see on the page. And part of the, the rhythm, the cadence that goes through the story. So I'm looking at all these elements, and it's like what's interesting was to go from hand tools to digital tools and find the equivalent to give me that organic feel. Because a lot of times, comic companies have a house style, and so that they have a branded look. But then when I look at it, I find it very lifeless, because it's like rubber stamping a certain method. So I try to break that.
Yeah.
When you see my sound effects, every letter form is tweaked, distorted, and skewed and such until it feels like it fits.
Right.
Part of hand lettering you learn is like not to cover crucial pieces of the art that tell a story. So sometimes it's hard if the copy is tight or whatever. That's why, Dwayne, sometimes I chop balloons to let it breathe, right?
Well, and then
Yeah.
that's our natural speaking vernacular anyway. It comes with pauses and breaks. So.
Yeah.
So that makes sense that you would, split things up that way sometimes. Dwayne, so what has this experience been like for you?
Oh, I mean, wonderful. I mean, I was here. I worked for other companies before, and you're playing someone else's sandbox, which is fun. But with Sandy, we're like working in a creepy backyard graveyard. It's like you just go out there, dig up weird shit, and the weirder the better. I mean, actually, I was for me, it's a point of honor to I try to gross out Sandy whenever I can. I never have succeeded. I always wait for her to email or call, say, "What the fuck are you doing?" But I never get there. I try. She's unshockable. I try. So so it makes me, I think, a weirder and a better writer to sort of just try to impress her, whatever I can. But I've never crossed that line where I've gone too far. Maybe someday I'll go there. I don't know. I've tried.
That's your goal is to go
It's my goal.
over the edge.
Exactly.
You kind of got me with the clown because I really hate clowns.
Oh, good.
Good
Excellent.
note. Good to know.
Plans. Good.
Oh boy, here comes an entire issue.
But seriously, it's so much fun working for, Storm King is not a huge company. It really is a very intimate, hands-on, handcrafted place. I mean, I feel like other publishers who will go unnamed, you feel like you're kind of just a cog in the machine. You kind of feel like you do your part, you crank out your script, and someone else works on it, and the end result is not as familiar to you as with the Storm King comic. I feel like you're there every inch of the way. We're all talking, we're all tweaking together and looking at pages, and it just feels like, again, a small cool family making these seriously weird comics, and that's a thrill. So I love that. That's the best kind of working environment you can ask for.
Yeah, I mean, not to talk shit, but I will because it's my show. Nobody gives a crap about their comics anymore. It's all about their TV or movie productions anyway, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
But you see, that's the flaw. For me, the comic is the end point. It's not the beginning to a franchise. I don't think all comics make great movies. I don't think all movies make great comics. I want that book. This is the people's art form. This is the, and it's all about respecting the reader and the fans. And it's about this unique art form. The people that you're talking to today are the stars of my show. Kat knocks things out of the park every time. You just get engrossed in the world she creates. Whether she's
it's like a water world. It's like it doesn't exist except for Kat and Kat's hands.
Yeah, and whether she's drawing something for Frank Thierry or for Amanda or for whoever I might team her up with, and I've just conned Amanda into Kat into a new secret series that
you tease.
Secret.
Yeah, we're gonna have an action series that I think will rock.
Awesome.
But and so of course I want to go and then but these I don't understand a company that doesn't see the storytellers as their biggest asset,
Right.
because that's the whole point. Is you want to take people somewhere, you want to show them the best time, you want them to want those books in the box under their bed, you want them to cherish that the covers are the most beautiful things on earth.
Yeah, collection.
And, you know, these are tough times economically. I want everyone that spent $4 on a floppy, or $25 or $35 on a trade, to just be so excited that they got it and so happy with their investment, and feel like, oh my gosh, somebody really cared about showing me a good time.
Yeah, which you
Yeah.
can find at stormkingcomics.com.
Yes.
Woohoo!
Yeah. And you know, but the idea is really that every step of the way we tried to do our best to show them a great story and a great time.
Right.
And beautiful art. And you know, it's not for everybody. It's not, you know, we don't try and make it like, oh, we might offend somebody in Iowa with this, or we might, oh, somebody not like this. But you know, we now have stories that go from age 4 with Stanley's Ghost, you know, and Ghost Bunnies at Bunnyborough Mansion, you know, up through, you know, Grub in Grimmstown Terror Tales, you know, for the 8 to 12-year-olds. And then, you know, we've got the young adult stuff with Niles and Monica Blue, a werewolf story. And then up through our regular adult horror things that are more existential and deal with it, you know, because there's horror's an allegorical medium.
You can't fuck around with horror, especially not with horror fans. Like they
No.
will crucify you literally. Like you do not mess with horror fans in their medium. And you're right. And this is the argument I have with people, with Walking Dead fans all the time, that like left after season 2 or 3 when they're like, oh, there wasn't enough walkers being killed. Well, why are you watching? Are you watching for the gore and the horror aspect of the zombies? Or are you like me and you're watching for the survival aspect and the human storyline, and how their humanity is in question and constantly in changing because of the horror that is surrounding them? So yeah, it's about the storyline.
Yeah, if you don't care about the story within the story, if you don't care about the characters, if you don't care about the plot arcs, the character arcs, and those things, you can't just pour blood on it and call it horror. You know, that's
Those are slasher films.
And you know, that's lazy. I think you have to have, I mean, and it's one of the reasons that I feel like our little niche at Storm King is bringing in writers from movies, from novels, from short stories, from everywhere. And you know, that's, you know, we're a little more cinematic because that's kind of what I dig. I like really fine art all the way through the books. I don't like really great covers and then crappy stuff in the middle.
Oh, that's the worst. I hate that too.
That. You know, you see a great cover and then you open it up and you go, "Ah, saved money here, didn't you?" That's not interesting to me. You know, but I like different forms of storytelling. I like, it's why sometimes I've had, much to his chagrin, David, I'll give him a piece of art and say, give me a 1-page story to go with this art. I try to shake it up. I try to have things so that, like, the anthologies are the box of chocolates of horror.
Right. Well, speaking of characters and writers, David, how do you change your writing for the medium? Because you've worked on every medium out there. And what draws you to horror?
I had to be walked into comics at gunpoint.
Yes.
And Dwayne was one of the guys holding the gun.
It worked.
and Bradstreet was the other guy.
We're best friends on
Ah,
board.
Bradstreet. Shout out, Tim. Love you, Bradstreet.
It's like I thought it was going to be easy, right?
Yes.
Years ago,
Mhm.
I was involved in a comic that was spun off from Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw 3.
Mhm.
And it was a disaster because it turns out I couldn't write comics for shit. And,
Well, it's good you got that out of the
passed.
way real fast then.
Yeah, decades passed, and Dwayne said, "Hey, why don't you?" You know, he was staying at my house at the time. Actually, Dwayne could probably tell you the story, but and it allowed me to reconnect with Sandy after way too many years. And it just looked incredibly salubrious, and the receiving environment for that storytelling was so much different from what I had first experienced in comics. Because for one thing, Sandy is like the best book editors. There aren't very many of them around anymore. When she makes a suggestion, it's seriously based and she really means it. And 9 times out of 10, it's brilliantly on point. You know, she's not doing it just to flex power or to establish, you know, the hierarchy of who's the boss of this. It's like, it really is a story issue. And so if she brings it up, I'll take it seriously.
So she's Tony Danza and Angela all in one.
Well, when she brought up the artwork, who was the guy? Nick Percival had the painting, and we didn't have a story in one issue. And she said, "Can you do a story for this?" And literally, it wasn't even 11:59. It was like 11:59:45, you know, on the clock. And I wrote a story in one day like that, and we did it again in the last issue. And the cool thing about those little prose stories, breaking up the graphic novel panel format stories, is that I discovered when I went to Noir at the Bar that it makes the best live reading material possible. I've read those stories, Sandy, for conventions, on panels at readings, because you get in, you get out, and it's really fast. And man, when you come on after 8 other writers who've read way too long passages of their novels in progress, and they're not good readers to begin with, you know, it's like you need to attach the electrodes to the audience and wake them back up. And that's what happened at Noir at the Bar, which is why I wish Dwayne could have seen it. But you know, you will see it. But doing these series, both I've now done series for Storm King and been a contributor to Halloween Night since the beginning. It's really like the best of circumstances, where I am like directing a movie, essentially, with the artist, with the colorist, with Janice, because we exchange hundreds of emails on every step of this process.
Right.
And it's like they're coming up to you at the monitor and saying, "I don't have no idea how this raccoon is going to appear dead." And you go, "Let me think about that and get back to you." And when Sandy says, and I've also adapted prose stories, and when Sandy says, "I don't think this is going to work in comics," I have to demonstrate how it will. And I will change my own story to adapt to that medium. I don't know if that's an answer to your question, but these are some of the things I love about working with Storm King.
It is. It is an answer to the question, and that's something I wanted to talk about here for sure with all of you. Is most people, like, you know, people, they buy comics, they read comics, they don't understand how comics are put together, and that it is like putting together a full production of a TV show or a movie. And I wanted to talk about how lettering versus writing versus art and all of that works together. Kat, so how do you take these wonderful words and put them into picture form?
That usually happens when I start reading it. As soon as I start reading something, the images will start popping in, and then when I start working on the layouts is when I you know, am able to start making those images into panels. But I try, you know, sometimes it doesn't work and I have to figure out something else. But most of the time, it's pretty much what I saw when I read it is what I end up drawing. That's, I don't know, it's just how my brain goes.
So that first initial inspiration, and boom, you're off, and not a lot of redos.
Right. You know, I mean, sometimes, you know, obviously sometimes something doesn't work, and then there, you know, always a couple years later when I go back and look at it, and I was like, oh, I should have done something. I should have done that different. That happens all the time.
Oh yeah.
I could have done that better.
If you're not second guessing yourself, you're not a creator to begin with.
Right. Yeah.
And as an artist, like now, are you picturing where lettering could and how that all fits in over the art and in with it, or you're just doing it and then you're handing it off to Janice?
I do. Hopefully Janice agrees, but I do try to leave room where things go, or where I think they should go. Try not to fill it all with essential pieces of the scene.
Right. Well, because that's definitely something I have learned over the last 10 years from all my artist friends is proper use of negative space and how important that is.
Right. I did have a book once. There was a 9-panel page, but there were paragraphs of dialogue, and I was just like, well, I don't even need to draw anything here.
It wasn't.
Wow.
It wasn't her. No.
Let the letterer draw her own balloon bubble, right?
My artist.
The worst ones are the hunchback balloons. It's like, oh my God, this is gonna like totally obliterate the character.
Yeah.
Occasionally, my artists are great bullshit detectors, because my tendency is to overstuff the panel and overstuff the script, and I'll get roughs back from the artist where they just entirely disregarded something because the artist was able to find a visual way to cut past all that fucking smoke,
Right.
you know, and express it in the panel, and I'm perpetually amazed by that ability that you guys have. So
well, and that's something I want to ask all of you
Yeah.
as writers, because I know you've all written, you know, novels as well as graphic and comic books. Like, how do you make that switch? Because you know, that's something I had to learn the first time I wrote a movie script. Like my friends were like, stop telling the director how to do his job in the script. Like and that's basically what you're just alluding to right there, is it's an artist's job to take those words and say like, hey, we don't need all these words when you can make a visual representation of that.
there's no word limit on a comic script. So feel free to go into as much detail as you need to. It's like and if you have a suggestion, I don't want to write a directorial script. Believe me, I spent over a decade learning how not to write a directorial script for TV, for movies. But if you think it's important, put that note in there. Put that note in there conversationally, so like, you know, some you know, studio head somewhere won't, you know, think it's gospel or something, and say, hey. And now in the scripts that I'm writing for Storm King, I put notes in directed to Janice, directed to, you know, Andres, or something like, when you do this, remember this. And I always get the email back saying, have you lost your mind? Tell me what you're talking about. And
That's Andre, it's not me.
yeah. Plus we have, it took me months to realize that we have a slight language barrier there.
Oh, yeah, a slight one. Some of those are hysterical.
That needs to be compensated for, because like, you know, that word that you're using, I don't think it means what you think it means.
Inconceivable.
Yeah. It's funny. I try not to actually bore my artists. Like, I don't want to overdo it with instructions, because it's like, after a while, it's like, all right, stop explaining. I just want to see it. So I am trying to, I know I'm writing for two people, Sandy and the artist I'm working with, so you can understand the story. And to me, like, pace matters even at the script stage. Like, if you read it quickly, oh, it's flowing, here's the action, you need to slow down a beat, then I'll try to slow down the script a little bit that makes any sense, you know, and kind of walk you through, here's why this moment we need a pause, it's a bigger panel perhaps, and here's why we're trying to see something. It's all story based, you know, but I do fear going too far. So I usually pull back from overdoing it. I don't want to direct, you know, the panels for the artists, because they're the ones who know far better than I do about how to do that. You know, if I have a suggestion, I'll make it, but I'll always say, I mean, whenever I work with someone new, I always say, look, my things are just suggestions, you know, unless it's changed the story, we can discuss it. But like, I trust you. Just go for it. Show us what you see when you read. Like the cat was saying, as you read it, I'm hoping that images are popping into the artist's head, and you can see what's going on, and they're inspired to kind of bring their best, craziest ideas to the page. So it's an audience of two in
You
a
and
script, basically.
Jason vibed really well on Redhead.
Yeah, we
one
did. It's great.
He picked up on your pacing really well.
Totally. And also, even in terms of mood, like Jason was amazing because Jason Felix, in drawing, like the dialogue only goes so far in expressing how someone says something. So when Jason draws a face, it's like, wow, that emotion comes through even minus the word balloon. It was amazing when he was able to do that. Take, what was happening and put it on the character's face. I was like, wow. Well, and that was not me saying it. It was like him doing it. So.
Yeah, I love artists. That's why I'm drawn to artists as friends, because I can't.
Yeah.
The first time I saw Jason's art was on Sandy's story for one of the Halloween Nights collection. Yeah. And there was a close-up of a wet tongue. And I saw that file. I screamed. I was like, what the heck is this? He won me over on that story. And then Redhead was like pure delight. It's like, wherever you came from, thank you, whoever brought the Storm King.
It was a learning curve. It was a learning curve for me because doing the standoff, which was the first series we did at Storm King, it was a learning curve about working with the team, letting them pick up what they do the best and not trying to do everything yourself on paper. And the demonstration of that was that Sandy turned to me at some Comic-Con that we were at, and she goes, okay, what's next? We wanted to find a way to keep the band together and do another project, which has now absorbed the better part of a year.
Right. Yeah, it's always a good sign.
It's putting those teams together or recombining because the story's different. Finding out who just vibes right. That's fun for me because sometimes a new writer will come into the group and not have an artist that they know or like, or they want to switch up and because they've done a different kind of story, and trying to figure out, okay, who
fits that theme and vibe. Yeah.
Who's got the personality that's going to mesh, because it's a chemistry between the writer and the artist, or the writer's mind and
it's a relationship.
Yeah, it is a relationship that I hope for them to have directly to not just go, oh, yeah, you draw this, you go write that, it's none of your business, it's all going to be fine. I want everybody to kind of vibe and communicate, and it's really gratifying when that works out.
Yeah. Well, speaking of relationships, how's it like working with your significant other?
Well, it's
this was a total setup.
Actually, no, I was gonna say I love, I work with multiple different artists on different projects, but my favorite is, and not just because she's sitting here, my favorite is to work with Kat, because that shorthand is obviously like very present. There's no worry. I can pull back even more than I do on other scripts because I know she's got it. I know whatever she's going to do is probably going to be better than what I had in my mind. And also, if she's unclear about something that I've written, she can literally walk into the next room and be like, hey, did you want it like this, or did you want it like this? Which it's nice to, and it's fun. I get to peek and see as things are coming along. I get a lot more sneak peeks than writers normally would.
Right.
Which is great because it's, the magic of it is the fact that it's a visual medium, and that whatever I write is brought even more to life by the art, by the, especially as Dwayne was saying, by the acting in the art, those facial expressions, which is something that Kat does so very well. That can communicate all the things unsaid and make, then you can rely less on dialogue, less on description, and that's something that I love particularly about working with Kat, but also about the medium in general.
Yeah. Right. But I mean, working together, like you said, you guys have that already communication level, but she fills in the blanks of the stuff you don't have to say. Extra communication level you don't get with other artists.
Right, right.
That's cool.
That's one of the hard. That's one of the hard things about working with a lot of companies is that everything has to go through the editor. You can't communicate directly with each other,
Yeah.
and it makes it really hard to. So it's nice to work with Sandy for this reason, and to be able to work with Amanda for this reason, is that it really feels more like a team rather than you're placed with.
Yeah,
people.
because when you're in the creative flow too, the last thing you ever want is for that flow to stop just because you're waiting to hear back from someone.
Right.
Yeah.
I found it's very useful to copy everyone on every message. Everyone in the team gets a copy of
Yeah,
the message.
Yeah, exactly.
You never know. You never know where that inspiration will come from. Somebody will pipe up and they'll say, "You know, that reminds me of this other thing over there." It also reminds me of a thing I wanted to ask Sandy since Dwayne's sitting here.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
You ever let your writers collaborate?
Why not?
Over to you, Dwayne.
Wait, so what are we doing now, David? What's going on?
I think David has a new project he wants to start with you.
I think so.
Hmm.
No, but actually, it's funny. On Kat's point about the writer and artist not speaking, I worked for I wrote a Mortal Iron Fist for Marvel for a series of issues, and working with an amazing artist, Travel Foreman, who lived in Philadelphia, where I was living at the time. It was a dream team. I never spoke to him once. It was by design. It was like they kind of want to keep you separate and only communicating through your editor. So the editor is in charge of how it's. But that's okay. But I really wish I could have just met up for coffee and talked through some of these issues and kind of really, because it was a complex, weird story that could have used that. And I guess it's just the corporate way, but I'm so happy that's not this way, that we're always talking to each other
That's really,
outside the box. Yeah, it's weird, right?
it's really stupid. And I think, again, that's something I brought from movies where the more you communicate, the better it becomes. And the more everybody is a team, I think you get better storytelling. You get better product.
Yeah.
And
I
if
think,
Yeah.
I think
the creators are respected in terms of like, what's your opinion of how do you think we should strengthen it? It builds that cohesion. Everyone has a part of it to make it succeed, basically. Because I worked with the major companies, and my view is like, okay, by 5 years old, I knew how to meet deadlines. So they get it in earlier, but not on the day they asked for. It was like 1 week ahead if possible. So it's like these simple things you do to give people extra time to, if the
No
color.
wonder you get so much work.
Yeah, it's like that. Sometimes I take advantage of it and give us the last minute. But it's like if you have that ethic, it makes it better for everybody. It's
I
like,
think so. I think everybody's happier. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You guys all seem very happy.
Very happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Neo's a ball of
oh, that
sunshine.
was clown like David. Don't do that.
Yeah.
You optimistic fuckers. It's like,
Well, I'd like to say what I love about working at Storm King Comics. It's the leadership from Sandy and John's blessings that we go forward and create things that no one else has ever seen. Dwayne has had the experience, and Kat and Amanda working at corporate comic companies where it's very, division labor is really clear. I guess it's good. It's really strong in terms of like getting the final product to the printer on time. That'll work. But then it really cuts to the freedom of the flow between the team. So, it's like I've been in this industry for going on 45 years. I've seen everything upside down, inside out. So, this is the funny part. I started working with Sandy, not knowing she was Sandy King Carpenter.
Oh, yeah?
Leonardo Manco connected us because I had lettered his first professional job for Marvel, Werewolf by Night. So, I was casting around for work. I connected with Leo again. So he goes, so I said, anytime you have a project not connected to a big company where they have a lettering department or a stable of people they use, consider me. So he pulled me in and he said, I think you two would get along really well. So I think maybe like a year later, I realized she was Sandy King Carpenter, but it didn't matter. You know, it's like anytime you take on a client, it's like, okay, if they're not from the industry, it's up to us to help them understand the process. You know, how do we make comics? And that's what we have to do, you know, if we want our medium to grow, you know, to recruit more people to make books. So
yeah, we definitely don't want it to die, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I did not come from comics, and that makes Sandy's choices even more important, because I can't come in and say I want it to look like such and such drew it.
Right.
You need that lead producer in the process to say, you go with this project, this person's over here, don't worry about that. And Sandy never says don't worry about that, but I didn't have to, because the team was so professional going in that any creative drawbacks with the team were never ever a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of stepped away from comics. Go ahead.
Martinez, they're phenomenal. This is the third series that you're working. Well, James Dennis wrote the first series, The Vault, and then David is working with Andres and Sergio. We finished the standoff. Now we're on another series. But what I'm really grateful about the collaborators with Storm King Comics is that they do not come from traditional comic backgrounds. You know, it's like people are coming from literature, from screenwriting, from film, and, you know, from all over, which is really refreshing. Because, you know, it's like a lot of comic writers learn from reading other comic writers how to write comics. It's like, so, you know, I've read enough storylines to say, okay, yeah, this is something different. I could tell.
Because it should be an art form.
Is this going to put me to sleep or not? But even if it puts me to sleep, I can't be asleep at the wheel.
No, Dwayne did not do that when he recommended that I start writing comics. He did not bury me in a bunch of other comics. It was just sort of like, I'm saying, this is what I think a script is like. You tell me if I completely fucked it up or not. And we just literally went from the page. But Neo, you were saying.
Yeah, how did they get you back in comics, Neo?
Oh, I mean, Sandy, really, because like as everybody's talking about the sort of the corporate culture of comics where there is no connection. You send off, you know, I write a script, I send it off, that's the last thing I see until I literally get a copy of the book, you know? So I don't even know what's gonna come. So this, you know, I've been writing books. I've been just doing prose for like the last 7 or 8 years, basically, just because, and even some of that's like, you know, if it's a licensed corporate product, then it's sort of like you're hardly involved, you know? So it's like your job is to turn out the thing and then just be out of the process. But I think what's been cool about this is like my Grimstown story, it's like nobody would have done that in comics. Like that's what's interesting with Storm King, is you're seeing things that nobody else would do. And, you know, like if I pitched it to any other comic company, they'd be like, yeah, that sounds cool. Anyways, you know, what else you got? You know, so, you know, and then Sandy, I talked to her, I got this idea and I pitched it to her and she's like, cool, let's do that. And it ends up being, you know, I think one of my favorite things I've ever worked on, really, you know, and largely because of the collaboration process and because the artist, you know, Renee Deliz, she can do whatever she wants, you know, and Sandy trusts her to bring her style, you know. And I've never got like a text message from an artist that's working and been like, on page 13, do you think it'd be better this way? And it's like, yeah, of course, because you're the artist and you're right, you know. So, you know.
But that communication, you're just not used to that kind of level.
Yeah, exactly. Just to be able to get that, and I keep telling her like, just draw whatever you want, you know. I know, you know, surprise me, amaze me. You're gonna blow me away. You always do. But I mean, that just doesn't happen anywhere else. So to be part of this has really been a privilege, honestly. And I hope I just continue to work with them for as long as they'll have me. So.
Plus, you guys are working in a medium, you know, that we don't want to die, but it's a niche part of that medium, doing all the Halloween nights and the horror type genres. Because, like, I don't know what, you got to go back to the 50s and 60s and then maybe the 70s for like really good horror comics. And then they kind of went out of fashion for a long time. So you guys are kind of bringing that back.
Well, I think if companies don't start stepping up and doing more of this, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, take the horror from somewhere besides comics if that's a problem.
Right.
Horror's never horror is never really going to go away. And then I think what got really interesting when I first started coming out with our first horror comics, Asylum, and then the first Halloween Nights, there were a bunch of people coming up to my booth at like WonderCon stuff, and a kid working for me knew who all the writers were and all that. And he goes, we're getting besieged by DC writers who are buying all the books. And then shortly thereafter, DC started, horror and stuff. And I
They won't
realized
let me better, though.
that big thing, trolling me. And it was like, something's going on.
Right.
And then now there's horror books all over the place.
Yeah. So and that's the difference between following trends versus being trendsetters. I never really pay attention to what other people are doing, for better or for worse. So it makes you a trendsetter.
I just do it's cool to me. And so far it seems to work out. That doesn't mean we won't. I'm sure we're going to make a book that everybody hates at some point. I'm sure, I'll make some giant mistake somewhere along the line. But so far, the one thing I know is we do good books, and they're good quality, and they're good stories. So beyond that, there's no guarantees in life. We just keep going.
Yeah. Well, and because you guys, every single person I'm talking to here treats it as an art form, as it should be treated. So mad respect there.
Comics are a medium. They're not, it's all kinds of stories fit under that art form. I think too many people still equate comics with tights and capes, and that's fine. But my favorite comics are the horror, the crime stuff, the confessional stuff, Westerns. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I love the kind of the weird genres you can't afford to do in movies, but comics, it's relatively cheap to tell these stories that aren't being told elsewhere. That's the fun of it. You can do anything you want. So that's the thing. It'll always live and always be vibrant as long as creators keep following their visions and not corporate demands.
I don't think Storm King is like a trendsetter so much as a gold standard for this kind of thing. And if you're running a gold standard for this kind of thing, you should be allowed to experiment. You should be allowed to take the risk of falling on your ass, because that's what gives you the peaks and valleys of a very rich overall menu.
Yeah.
I just think, my criteria for choosing the stories and stuff is, do I think we're telling a unique story? Do I think that it's something that the fans are going to like, that takes somebody somewhere else? As Dwayne said, we're not having to figure out how to pay to blow up a mountain. We can blow up the mountain in the same amount of money as we can in the closet.
Or spaceships, right, David?
Scowl. Yeah.
But it's Brzezinski.
Ooh, why did I just step in?
Swerzinski.
But I think that we should dare to be bold and tell the tales that we think are fun and interesting.
Yeah.
And the one I've set Amanda and Kat off on a journey on, I think is going to be fun. And
we can't talk about yet, apparently.
And you can't tell what it is. But
stupid NDAs.
Sandy, it was funny we were on the same page.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
And I were talking. But I just found, we started off doing, Asylum, and then it expanded, and basically I just found comics were really rewarding art form and a fun way to tell stories. So it's kind of like the Elvis thing. When it quits being fun, we'll quit doing them. But right now we're having a ball.
But what's really great is also the book trailers incorporate John's music with the graphics.
Oh yeah.
Comics.
Yeah.
So there's a synergy there that Storm King Productions, which I really.
'Cause I heard Sean at Storm King, like, pick a piece of John Carpenter music you want to go with your book trailer. And I go, well, it's great. I got a top 3 choices. And he goes, those are all. But the great thing about the Tales for Halloween Night versus the long form stories is that Tales for Halloween Night is just not bite-sized versions of the long form stories. Tales for Halloween Night is like vaudeville. It's like we all get on stage and we do our thing for a very limited amount of time
And get off the stage.
and get the hell out of the stage. Yeah, we either impress you or you don't, but there's enough flavors in that sampler box that somebody will be spiked by one of them, the one that has the amphetamines in it.
Oh, right now there's kids Googling half of what you just said. What the hell is vaudeville?
Vaudeville?
Is that a town?
Is that in
Don't show
Kansas or
kids
Iowa?
vaudeville. Don't show kids vaudeville. That's dangerous. Yeah.
Vaudeville,
Oh my
vaudeville
goodness.
corrupted an entire generation.
Boy Scout of comics, yes.
Right. And that's what's great about the comic book genre is you get to pay homage to different other types of mediums like vaudeville and noir and you get to draw from different inspirations.
Yeah.
I love, when our stories, Thierry does it a lot where he kind of pulls from noir, has that voice through his stories.
It's an irresistible tradition.
Yeah,
You
Cat's
can't-
art
can't
works
not do it.
perfectly with Frank's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's always
Totally.
got her playing in the fog.
Love it. Blessed to draw.
Yeah.
A foggy forest over a metropolitan city any day.
Yeah. So you have a fog layer already for Frank.
I want that fog. In a perfect world, I live in Noir Town. I go outside, the streets are always wet. It's always nighttime. Half the street lights aren't working. There's a guy in the corner smoking a cigarette. That's the world I want to live in.
Yeah, you want those streets like we did on Rumblefish for Coppola, where we watered them down not with water but with glycerin and then sprinkled them with glitter.
Yeah. Well, it's like glycerin doesn't evaporate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Movie magic. Wow.
Nice.
That's cool.
That
I've
is-
never heard that trick before.
Sandy is going to be spraying us down with glycerin.
Yeah, if you don't watch out, it's gonna be super glue.
Oh boy.
We'll look like newborn babies.
Can't wait to see that cosplayed at the next San Diego Comic-Con.
Just add fire.
We had so much fun at the booth. That's what I really miss.
I miss the booth.
New York and San Diego booth.
Oh, the booth.
And Sandy always has such an amazing booth set up at cons. Like I love going by and just seeing what she's done, depending on the con she's at and the year. But since this is the CONLIFE podcast, what do you guys miss about conventions and seeing the fans in person?
That we can't give great booth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We miss couches and sandwiches.
Because you know what the press at a Comic-Con in New York or San Diego is like being on a slave ship. It's belly to butt times a zillion, and we need that Storm King booth as a safe haven.
Right.
Yeah.
That's our sport. We have to
And if you stay at the booth long enough, the entire convention will come to you. They'll walk right past you.
That is true.
Well, but it's really fun when we do, like, we had the 30-foot booth in New York last time with the whole long gang signing. And that gets really fun and really crazy because it's just, we got the books flying, we got the signatures going, and then that makes it really fun for the fans. And it's fun for us because, you're not just sitting there going, name.
So many people want to take your picture.
That's just
you're a big celebrity. Everybody comes back. They bring the books that you write, and you're standing with them. I think that's so cool.
It's a different kind of production itself, being at a con. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and it's the most fun when we're able to really line it up, really schedule it right. Do like 2 big gang signings in San Diego and in New York in particular, because that's where we have the most of us, the
Yeah.
West Coast team and the East Coast team. And it's fun for us to all get together because it's because we've all had the communication throughout the year.
Right.
So to get to see each other face to face, it's fun for us. And then I think we kind of carry that party over to the fans when they come up, because it's fun to get the immediate feedback from them.
Oh yeah.
I love at New York Comic Con when Kat has a special cover for the anthology. People literally come running as soon as the floor is open. They come running to get that year's collection of
Wow.
Halloween night, and it's so exciting because they're repeat people, and then people will show up. One man actually came. He was an engineer. He saw somebody carrying a copy of a Halloween night book, and he came over and bought all the previous years. He said, "I'm getting this for my daughter." I was
Wow.
like, "Oh, that's really nice." So it's like it has presence, not even just in front of the booth, but when people carry it around on the floor, they see the quality, book, and when they open, it's like, yeah, for sure.
Plus, I like the excuse of being able to get together with all the people that you can see on the screen here, because frequently in life, we don't provide ourselves with enough excuses to just get together and have drinks or food or whatever. Now, I'm sure John was relieved that he didn't have to do Golden Apple this year. But still, Golden Apple is still fun because we all go up to John and Sandy's house after.
Yeah.
That makes it worth the drive. That makes everything. I'll sign as many comics as you want, as long as I get to go to that after party.
Yeah, it's fun. And Bradstreet always tries to figure out, get John to turn on a Western movie.
You have not lived until you have gone to John Carpenter's house and after a signing and watched a Western with him.
Watch the Western and
Wow.
Bradstreet always request. I haven't made the chili in a couple of years. Bradstreet always wants chili and a Western.
I had the chili one time and it's wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah,
That sounds like my kind
I'll
of
have to
day.
fly out
I'll be
with
waiting
you.
for my invite in the mail.
The Golden Apple.
but it's those times to get together that are fun, because I think we, as a company, I do try, whether it's the movies or the comics or anything like that, to have those bonds, because you have more fun. I mean, come on, we do a lot of hard work. But we're talking about all the great side of it, but it's work.
Yeah.
And I like people to feel good about the work they do.
And it makes them want to come back and do more work.
Yeah, I'm not stupid.
The great part is that we usually don't go back begging for work. Sandy will turn to you and go, "Okay, so what's next?"
Yeah.
That's the best.
That's a 360 from
These
traditional.
guys, are you kidding? That lineup that you're looking up there, they're superstars. I'm the luckiest person alive. I get to do what I love in life with the people I love.
I don't know. I'm kind of feeling like the luckiest person alive right now, looking at all these people on my screen right now. This is an amazing cast of characters and of talent and creators, and it's just a pleasure to have you guys on the podcast and meet you guys as well. I've known Neo and Sandy for quite a while, so it's a pleasure to make new friends, and hopefully.
Tell me about this, Casey, because will people be able to see the version of this with us talking, or is it just audio, just a podcast?
No, this everything I do is a video format that ends up audio format. So I was the first original video podcast on YouTube 10 years ago. There was no other one else.
You say podcast, but the people who are watching it will be able to see what we're looking at right now.
Exactly.
Oh, great.
As well as
everyone, thank you for coming.
Because I want to be able to tell people how they can.
And I'll have this up in the next couple of days, and I'll email you individually the link, so that way you guys all have it.
Cool.
So you can do with it whatever you want from there.
Going back to connecting at conventions, Dwayne, it was a pleasure to meet Jason before we started Redhead.
Yeah, that was great.
We were able to understand where we came from, so it was really easy communicating with him. If I had some issues about how I should letter or whatever, And
Yeah.
thank you so much for the support, Dwayne.
No, yeah,
every-
we had a
every-
shorthand, you know, because we met. It was great. It was really great to work together after that. It was kind of rolling into that project. It was
hang
like,
out
oh,
with
okay.
David, yeah. And
Well,
all the-
and a lot of people don't realize how many projects start by just two people like y'all meeting at a Comic-Con. Like,
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
I've introduced writers and artists together, and like their projects are out there, and like I know, you know, I had no hand in that, but I introduced them. So like I feel like I had a hand in it. Like
Yeah.
it's amazing the networking and all the little things that happen at a Comic-Con. Like that's now the con crud has left the con and is in the full world. Now we're stuck doing the networking this way. So that I'm extremely appreciative of you guys taking time out of your day to spend it with me, having this conversation. It's been a blast.
Absolutely. Thank you, Casey. Thank you. This is awesome.
Thank you, Casey.
This is almost as much fun as a convention.
Almost.
Almost.
But
Really close.
I'm not, here's what I miss the most. Really awkward, nerdy interactions. Like I could just sit back and watch nerds fan out all day and get awkward and forget what they were going to ask and stutter, and just like those kind of interactions are my favorite things at Comic-Cons.
So you take pleasure in other people being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's literally why I started this channel. Like, so it started as Down the Road Show podcast. And while I was in between interviewing celebrities and artists and writers, like I got bored. And so I started Chronicles of Comic-Con doing parodies of making fun of those awkward interactions. So I was putting cosplayers together with celebrities.
That's awesome.
Doing weird interactions. And that's how this channel even got started to begin with. So
Wow.
So yeah, this is only the third episode of this podcast. Like this.
No, cool.
Cool.
Yeah, this is a
one.
brand new idea. I miss all my convention friends, and it was just like, let's start a new podcast. All right, let's bring them to me. So, all right, well, that's a wrap in another episode of Con Life. Thank you, Sandy, for bringing all these wonderful, creative, talented people. It was a pleasure talking to all of you and getting to know you. Look forward to more books and more creative adventures with Storm King Comics from all of you. Thank you for being on the Con Life podcast. It was an absolute pleasure. Until next time, we'll see you all at a convention floor somewhere down the road.